What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here with another college football team preview. Our goal with this series is to provide in-depth roster analysis and expectations ahead of the 2026 season for each college football team. So if this is the kind of in-depth analysis you like, please consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on this video, and checking out some of our other in-depth content. All right, let's get into it. Tulane. 2026 football. A lot of change for the Green Wave this year. After a college football playoff appearance, we're going to go through the roster, the head coaches, a brief look at last year before we dive into what to expect this year, given everything that is going on with this program. So here's where their recruiting stands over the last few seasons. Tulane has been an awesome recruiter in the American. This is basically a top 3 recruiting team across the board and maybe the best team in terms of just overall retention. They're great at retaining talent and just overall recruiting rankings. They're basically in the top 70 nationally in terms of what they're putting on the field year over year and just overall recruiting. So this is a good job. And they get kids to stay. If you're looking at kind of where they stand in the conference overall, just over the last 3 years, the only team they trail in recruiting is South Florida. They're tied with Memphis, and their transfer rankings only trail Memphis too. So kind of you have Memphis as the top job in the American for football, and then there's sort of this tie between South Florida and Tulane for the next best job. So great place to work, and even when it turns over coaches, it does often because it's such a good job. Guys still find success. And last year, Tulane 11-3 go to the playoff. They now lose their head coach Summerall because of that. But, I mean, we even saw this team beat some pretty clear Power 5 teams. They beat Northwestern. They beat Duke. They beat East Carolina, Memphis, North Texas. Their losses were 2 of them came to Ole Miss in blowout fashion. Ole Miss is an awesome team. And then they dropped a road game to UTSA. In my opinion, this was the best G5 team last year, a rightful representative of the G5, not James Madison. And that's exactly what we got. But now there's a lot of change. So we mentioned the job is good, and Will Hall will be taking over, replacing John Summerall. Hall was the pass game coordinator last year for Tulane. Before that, he was the head coach of Southern Miss, where he ran the program into the ground. They were 14-30. He worked at Tulane before that, too. So this is a guy with a lot of Tulane ties. I'm just kind of hung up on he was so bad as a head coach when we last saw him. Should we be factoring that in, or am I personally factoring it in too much? I don't know, but first instinct, like that Hall has experience with the program, don't like that he was so bad first time he had this job. Russ Callaway takes over OC duties. He was actually Florida's OC last year, coached tight ends before that. It was a pretty pass-heavy scheme. Florida, 51% pass rate, below average pace, but some of that was likely because they were losing a lot. Tulane's going to be better, so I would expect them to be even slower, maybe run a little bit more. Tulane was 46th in offensive efficiency last year. Now, they did retain DC Tyler Polk. He's been at least co-DC since 24. He actually did that with Troy before that. And, I mean, this defense was okay. I think you'd be surprised to hear they finished 85th in total defensive efficiency. Some of that, I think, is playing well, miss twice. Like, you get blown out, give up 40 points 2 times. It's not going to help you, but if there's a question with the staff on defense, Polk at least might be a small one. I have more questions with Will Hall than anyone else, just the overall head coach. And honestly, there's a lot of turnover on this roster. It starts with losing Jake Retzlaff, your QB. So let's go to the depth chart and talk about it. We'll change screens and pull you over to that. Basically, when you see this, there's going to be a 0-100 score for all these players. 0 being the worst, 100 the best. 100 would be like Heisman players, first-round draft picks, all conference guys, and 50 is your midpoint. So for Tulane, here's what we've got. If you ever want to see this too, it's link in the description. But Jake Retzlaff is gone. I don't know who plays QB for this team. They have a transfer, Zion Chris Gramillion from Houston, originally of Louisiana Lafayette. And they have former transfer Caden Simones is still on the roster, who did not take a snap last year. So let's start with the Louisiana kid. Didn't really do a lot with Houston, was a backup with Louisiana, 64% completion, 7.1 yards per attempt. 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. The main problem here is he ran really hot. He actually had 11 big time throws and 26 turnover worthy plays. Also took 28 sacks. Now, 992 rushing yards was very mobile. That's a positive to Chris's game. But overall, the passing is really underwhelming, and the sack taking was just a huge problem when we saw him last. So do we see Simonza? I don't know. He was a Ball State transfer. He's a small QB, 5'11", 196. When he was with Ball State, he completed 64% of his passes for 6.9 yards per attempt. The MAC is a worse conference, but 16 big-time throws, 16 turnover-worthy plays. It's okay. He also took 32 sacks, 26% pressure to sack ratio. I said this last year. I would not really impressed with this QB room. Now, last year when they added Retzlaff, I thought it kind of gave them another dimension to this game. I don't think Chris is as good as Retzlaff. Simonza already got beat out by him and didn't play a snap last year. I think this could be a big step back. Last year, they were 26th in passing efficiency. My projections early on have them 76th. It's still 5th in the American, but man, I don't know. I'm a little worried. Tell me in the comments if you disagree, but we'll see on this. Receiving room, they were also 24th in just total receiving efficiency. They lose Shaz Preston to Indiana. They lose Bryce Bohannon to graduation. Amari Hayes went to Iowa State. Trey Shackelford graduated. So their leading receiver, Anthony Brown-Stevens, was second on the team last year in total receiving yards. He's a former four-star, 5'10", 170 pounds, caught 41 balls, 1.85 yards per route, and was perimeter receiver only, really, 75% of the time he was out there. Pretty efficient when he was doing so. So that's a good place to start. Second receiver, Zycar Lewis is going to have to step up after 284 snaps and 24 catches last year. Played about half his time in the slot, half out wide. He was at 2.2 yards per route in the small sample, so some potential upside. And they do bring in a couple four-stars like Destin Hill, formerly of Florida State and LSU. Hill was really hurt last year. Only caught 6 passes. But, I mean, tore his ACL in 2024, fractured his hand in week 1 last year. Just like, stay on the field, please. Love to see what you have to offer. And then like Breedell Richardson, a 4-star from Central Florida, he's a sophomore with 8 snaps. He is yet to make a catch. And that's concerning to me because Central Florida was awful. So you couldn't get on the field with Central Florida. Is that just like stubborn coaching, or is there a problem with you? And it could be either. I could see it. Maybe Richardson's not really a 4-star prospect, or Scott Frost might be a moron. There's actual evidence for both of those. The rest of the depth, Gabe Daniels came over from Syracuse, just 79 snaps, not a lot to be seen there. Garrett Mamahat he's a walk-on, 74 snaps. The rest of this group, just not much to really talk about there. A couple decent freshmen come in. But, I mean, what happens to this receiving group outside of Anthony Brown-Stevens is a huge question for me. Can Zycar Lewis maintain this efficiency on more snaps? Can Destin Hill and Breedell Richardson live up to their recruitment? I think those are your top 3 in an ideal world. But right now, there's not much depth. This unit ranks 87th nationally and 11th in the American. I just want to highlight with like Hill and Richardson, there is still very clear upside if those players can live up to their 4-star recruitments. Tulane's tight end room is depleted. You lose your top 3. Former Iowa transfer Johnny Pascui is gone. On top of him, Justin Reed went to Louisville. Anthony Miller went to Arizona State. They bring in an inexperienced Duke transfer in Vance Boyard. He's played 73 snaps in 3 years, mostly blocking. They add Dawson Johnson from Old Dominion, who is a former Florida walk-on, who then went to Old Dominion, played poorly on 346 snaps. Who would have thought walk-on ends up being a putrid blocker? Kind of is what it is. I mean, I don't really want either of them playing. So can you get Gabe Lawhorn to play more? Redshirt freshman with 13 snaps. Can you get DJ Cicero more than 2 snaps? The position's not really been recruited well. We have them ranked 87th nationally, 9th in the American. To be honest, like they just don't have any high-profile transfers. They lack proven production, and they don't have a ton of great recruits. So this tight end position is a major question for me. Getting to the offensive line, This unit lost Jack Holyfield, Shadri Hurst, Derek Graham, and Jordan Hall all graduated, and that's important because this unit was 30th in pass blocking, 83rd in run blocking. So you have one full-time starter back at your right tackle, Reese Baker. He's kind of light, 275, but he was solid. Struggled more in the run game. It looks like he might move into guard, and I can see why. He's just not the biggest player. So he's like kind of a guard tackle, versatile player. After playing tackle last year, a lot of reports indicate maybe he plays inside. So watch that. Center, John Bach has played center before. Transfers in from FIU last year, plays only 7 snaps. But he played over 1,500 the 3 previous years with FIU and was good as a run blocker. He improved in his last season, 2024, 7 pressures allowed. So he's probably your center spot. Gavin Marks maybe is your other guard. A Mercer transfer, 61st percentile in the FCS. It's up for grabs. Like basically every position on the inside, and it'll depend on where they play Baker. Maybe you need 3 new starters in the interior. Maybe you need just 2. As far as like depth, Tristan Fortenberry was a decent recruit. Elijah Baker played 187 snaps, but he was horrible. Tylen George is the highest recruit in this class as a freshman, 602. TCU transfer Mitch Hodnett is back. They have a transfer from Mars Hill and Riley Rushing. I just don't know. Like this offensive line, especially the interior we've been talking about, full of questions. And that doesn't even count tackle. Like a tackle, Dominic Stewart has created some separation on paper. This is what spring reports have said. He came in pretty light, 270. He was good in a small sample, but we just haven't seen a ton of him. Opposite him is it Ryan Micko from Boston College, who played 181 snaps over the last 2 years? Or do we get a guy like Darion Reed who could maybe kick out? He was more of an interior player and wasn't very good when he played, but he's 6'7", 318. He's like a profile on paper, like a tackle position. Jules Baptiste is in year 2. He was a top 1,000 player. All this to say, man, like Baker's the only guy with locked-in starting spot. I'm not even 100% sure where he plays. I don't know who plays and where they play from the rest of this group, and it is not the most talented unit overall. Position group's not bare. It's more just unsettled, but there's a lot to replace here and a lot they need to do. Currently ranks 100th and 12th in the American. Now, running back. They lose Javin Gordon to Tennessee, Arnold Barnes to Iowa State, and Zuberi Mobley to graduation. They still have Jamari McClure, who played 178 snaps, which is a tiny sample, but man, did he flash. Won the job late, started down the stretch, 6.5 yards per carry, only 3 catches. Did fumble twice and had 1 drop on 4 targets, but just as a pure rusher, efficiency was awesome for him, so he'll get a look in a larger role. And to complement him, we know Tulane's a big multi-running back team. Johnny Daniels comes from Mississippi State. Jalen Lucas comes from Florida State. So Daniels is formerly a JUCO kid, rushed for 540 yards with 8 catches in 2024, sat out strategically last year when he got beat out by Fluff Bothwell. And Lucas has really struggled with Howell, originally played with Indiana, then goes to Florida State. Phenomenal special teamer, really good pass catching back, 64 catches in his career. Decent efficiency as a runner, but he's a pretty strong candidate to play on third downs in this situation. They also get back former Louisville transfer, Maurice Turner. Turner's been awesome when he's played, but he's just really bad with injuries. Last year, he barely played. They also get DJ Duger from Oklahoma State, should be a depth piece. Running back room ranks 101st overall, 9th in the American. That is because we don't have a lot of experience. You have the transfers, they are what they are, but your ceiling is probably coming from McClure. I mean, you're just going to get docked in the model for playing 178 snaps, even if you did flash. Just need to see it over a more consistent body of work. And before we get to the defense, this video is brought to you by our College Football Summer Guide. We've been hard at work trying to get this to you ever since the spring. And what this includes for just $50, projections for every single game. That's a score, a total, and a spread. That means win totals for every single team, all 138. There will also be player projections for those of you involved in best ball. That's down to the statistical level. Think passing yards, passing touchdowns, etc. Depth charts for all 138 teams, which includes our value grading score. You've seen that on the screen in this very video. You'll get written analysis for most teams and players, which updates constantly throughout the summer. And that is a real separator for us versus the competition. Whenever news breaks, that will be immediately updated. You also get Discord access, which allows you to chop it up on any team, player, anytime there's a story. A lot of like-minded people in there just like you. You can also ask any question. Those will be addressed either here or in the Discord itself. And if you'd like to support in a smaller way, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel. That helps show YouTube that this content is actually worthwhile, and it gets us in front of new viewers in the long run, which just helps us keep doing this. You can also hype the video, leave a comment. Those are great ways to support the channel. And thank you if you've done any of that. It truly does help the channel grow. Last thing, if you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, back to the video. So Tulane's defense, 96th in run defense last year, 16th in pass rush, very lopsided defensive line. They lose their top 4 edges now too, which is the main problem. Cameron Hamilton graduated, Harvey Dyson went to NC State, Jordan Norman went to Tennessee, and Mo Westmoreland graduated. It's a lot of departing production. To fill the void, they add Jordan McAllister from New Hampshire and Rashad Sterling from Houston. Those are probably your top 2 guys. So McAllister from New Hampshire, 6'3", 231, good in run defense, 22 pressures. That was 72nd percentile in the FCS. Pretty good, like just overall body of work for him. Should be able to make the jump. Sterling from Houston played just 13 snaps as a freshman, but this is a good recruit. He was ranked 606 in last year's class. And flat out, he's just a better prospect than most of the players that Tulane recruits anyway. So he should be able to get on the field pretty quickly. There are some depth pieces with some snaps. Jari Gardner, Jared Henderson. Gardner specifically, 274 snaps, 7 pressures. Henderson was 389 snaps. More of an average player and a run defender. But those are 2 guys that probably form a rotation. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like McAllister, Sterling, Gardner, and Henderson all rotating pretty evenly. A couple decent recruits, Josh Lewis and Warren Roberts, were top 750 recruits last year. Wouldn't be surprised to see them get on the field. But very little proven production among even just your top 6 edges. Inside, Santana Hopper goes to Colorado. Trayvon McAlpine goes to Kansas. You bring in Ed Smith from South Alabama. He was average on 929 snaps. No, that wasn't last year. That was over 4 years. So that's not like the best place to start for your defensive tackles. He did increase his snaps year over year with over 400 last year. So that needs to be worth noting, but little above average for him. South Alabama transfer to Tulane's not ideal in my opinion. Probably going to see increased playing time for Derek Shepard Jr., Armandus Cooley, and Jordan Goudry, who were mostly rotational guys. Shepard went from Cincinnati to UAB, back up to Tulane, rotational guy, a little better as a pass rusher. Cooley was below average on 251 snaps. He originally came from Southern Miss. Goudry was the best. Just the flashes we saw from him, even though it was only 134 snaps, he's probably your highest upside guy just if he can put that on the field in a more consistent way. You also have a freshman in Jordan Kreitz, top 700 incoming recruit. Probably doesn't play a lot with this group ahead of him. I'm really concerned about the defensive line, honestly. We have them 91st overall, 7th in the American. It's basically just a bet on development. We'll see. As for linebacker, they lose Sam Howard. He graduated. They do return Chris Rogers and Makai Williams. So Chris Rogers, 791 snaps for him. He's 6'1", 225. Good run defender, 40 tackles. In coverage, 19 catches on 20 targets for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a 95% catch rate allowed. Not good enough. Not good enough. Excuse me, that was Williams who did that. Let me rephrase. Makai Williams was the player with those statistics. Chris Rogers, he was actually much better. He was second on the team in tackles with 80. He actually still graded out below average. We just mentioned, Williams allowed a 95% catch rate. Rogers allowed an 89% catch rate. So it wasn't much better. These Tulane linebackers need to be moving forward, not backwards. And even Some people have slotted in Dixon Agu to start. He started the first 5 games before he got hurt. He was horrible before he got hurt. So I don't know if we can even count on him. One thing you can say about Tulane's linebackers is they are experienced getting burned in coverage, more like it. But man, this is a coaching thing in my opinion, which they retain their DC. Like you can't, unless you're just going to willingly give up some of these plays in coverage, like you just can't keep doing this, man. This is really bad. That piece is Jean-Claude Joseph, Dalton Hughes, Grayson McPherson. We'll see mostly like depth pieces, rotational pieces. We currently have Tulane's linebacker room ranked 120th nationally, 13th in the American. I can see this being pretty considerably lower if you just have some better deployment of these guys because they are experienced. It's just the fact that all of them were pretty bad. So I'm not really sure what to make of this. Players do get better year over year, so I don't want to count them out. Secondary, they lose 3 starters in Jaheim Johnson to Arkansas, Javian White to Houston, and Bailey Despany to Graduation. So a lot to replace there. There's only one clear corner starter in Isaiah Shine, who's 6'1", 185. He was a little above average on 704 snaps, kind of boom-bust player overall. He allowed 489 yards and 4 touchdowns, but also had 6 interceptions. They also returned LJ Green, who was a previous Troy transfer. He started in 24, but last year he played more of a rotational role. Still a little above average on the snaps he graded out. Probably your other candidate there. And then there's a lot of transfers like Anthony Rogers from Nichols, Justin Agu from Louisville, Kwan Banks from South Florida, Marquez Stevenson from Texas Tech. Rogers from Nichols, 75th percentile FCS athlete, firmly a candidate to play. Then you get to like Justin Agu from Louisville, started at an average level for Louisiana in 2024, doesn't play at Louisville. Now he kind of comes back to a position in between with Tulane, in between Louisiana and Louisville, that is, a level of competition. Banks for South Florida started some games in 24, but he started just 1 last year. Below average starter, and then mostly sat out because he got beat out. Mostly a slot guy. And then Stevenson for Texas Tech played a lot in 2024, poorly, and then gets beat out once Texas Tech makes all those investments in the portal last year. So it's a lot of like cast-offs or reclamation projects at corner. You have an East Central transfer in TJ Smith. I don't know about him. If you want to go the youth route, I guess like Sean Nichols, a former wide receiver playing the position. Michael Igbenogany is a decent recruit. He was in the top 1,000. I just don't know. It's a very unsettled position outside of like your top 2 guys in Isaiah Shine and maybe LJ Green. Safety should be a little easier. Jack Chenchu is back, full-time safety starter last year. He was above average, 2 years of starting experience. I think he's completely fine. Kevin Adams is the other guy. He played 546 snaps. He's played 900 snaps over the last 2 years. Good run defender too. Coverage numbers around average. That's probably a good spot to start with safety. It's just kind of like, what do you get beyond that? Joshua Moore did play 244 snaps, but the rest of it is just youth. We have this as a better unit, 4th in the American, 77th nationally. Definitely has its concerns like that final corner spot, but overall, defensive back should not be as big of a concern. At kicker, they add Ohio State transfer Jackson Corville, previously the Ball State kicker. But, he plays well at Ball State, goes to Ohio State, doesn't get the job. Now he transfers to Tulane. He's hit some 50-yarders, so this is positive for the program. But let's contextualize everything and show you what the Tulane roster looks like in relation to the rest of the American Conference. So, hopefully it doesn't surprise you too much, but we have Tulane taking quite a big step back this year. Quarterback is decent. Defensive back is their best position on paper, and their defensive line is okay. Linebacker, definitely the biggest concern. We have Tulane ranked 99th heading into the season, and part of the reason is I'm just not sure if you can bank on Tulane getting the most out of their players anymore with Will Hall. When you had Sumrall as your head coach, you knew even if Tulane was not experienced at positions, you could upgrade some of their position groups just because you had an excellent head coach who was consistently getting the most out of players. But now you have an inexperience at quarterback or low-level quarterback play, a ton of just replacements across the board, like 3 of your top 4 receivers, 4 starting offensive linemen, The linebackers you get back were all horrible because of their deployment. Just like, what do we get from Tulane this year? Now, the win total 7.5 is juiced under. I don't think it's juiced enough. We have this team projected for 4.2 wins. And I'll admit, I think maybe we're a little low on this. Even if we are, there's wiggle room between the projected line and what we have, where we could even bump this up a little bit and the under still would be a pretty decent play. It starts out with a game on the road at Duke. Duke's probably going to get their revenge in a game where last year was a turnover show. We'll get to Duke. They have a lot to get to. Then you play South Alabama, who's a very weak Sun Belt team, probably going to win that. Kansas State's another road game, so you're looking at 1-2 to start, probably, for this team. I think that's probably where you start, just 1-2. And then you got Southern Miss. We'll see about that. In conference, of course, couple triple option teams in Rice and Army. You play maybe the best team in the conference in Memphis on a Friday night, which is a short week. Fortunately, you're at home. Second game on a short week, you are away at Charlotte, who is a much improved team. All this to say, there's like a lot of teams that leveled up in the American this year. And then there's a couple teams that are like undergoing coaching changes, but some of them did more than others. Like South Florida did a ton. North Texas did a ton. Tulane really didn't do a lot. They're just relying on their recruiting. So with like basically the top of the conference, like Memphis on the schedule, South Florida on the schedule, North Texas on the schedule, UTSA on the schedule, this sets up as a pretty hard run for Tulane. And that if you lose those games, you're already dealing with little wiggle room because you have a Duke and Kansas State in the non-con. Like this very easily could be a 5-win season for Tulane, which would be a complete disaster, but it wouldn't be the most surprising. I have not taken this just yet, just because I want to ensure I'm not missing something. You know, like you see Tulane projected for like 4.5 wins and you get some sticker shock. You're like, well, this doesn't make sense. Then you dive into it and see all of the turnover and the new head coach and all of the change. You're like, oh, maybe this is true. So we're going to wait it out and see where we get a little later on. But that is what we've got for Tulane.